Welcome to the PAMU Podcast, your go-to neoliberal getaway.
Welcome to the PAMU Podcast.
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 Now, sit back and imagine you are in your designated cubicle, wasting your physical energy.
For the glory of the corporation.
For the glory of the corporation.
For the glory of the corporation.
For the glory of the corporation. Take a 5-minute lunch break and enjoy.
Welcome to the PAMU Podcast.
Hello, folks. Welcome again to the PAMU Podcast, your go-to neoliberal getaway. This time around, it's me, Nestor, aka Analytic Verb, on the page, with Vlad, aka Sonata of 360 on the page, and we have two guests who are going to introduce themselves. So
my name's
Isa,
my name's Isa. I've done chem work and I'm currently an escort, and I am also a student getting my undergrad in health promotion, so my interests lie in holistic health.
Hey, I'm Misha, and I kind of done a wide range of sex work throughout my life. I mainly do porn now. I do activism around that topic, and I make art.
All right, cool.
Nice. It's the fucking parrot podcast. Who has a parrot?
Who has a parrot? What is that? Is that a parrot?
Oh shit, dude. Should we introduce your parrot? Whose parrot is it?
Yeah, let's introduce the parrot, actually. Why not? Like, I'm in favor of introducing the parrot.
What's her name? Parrot.
No?
Do you not know your parrot's name, dude?
Oh, no, I don't have... No, okay, wait, let's just not introduce the parrot anyway.
Right, let's not.
We're all cat people here.
It stopped making noise. It's probably like a stage fright.
You shamed it.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, like... Because I thought, like, it would be just, like, kind of boring to just, ask, like, oh, why are you in favor of sex work? Or why are you against sex work? Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, like, a more interesting way of doing it is, like, just kind of, like, go through, like, what everyone thinks, like, sex work does, like, actually just, like, descriptively, like, what's the function that it fulfills. And then, like, what do you think is the function that, like, it should fulfill, if any? Like, or maybe, like, the two are the same, maybe they're not, and then, so, like, you think there needs to be, like, some kind of change, and then just, like, do that, but just, like, go forward in time to, like, different hypothetical futures.
You're gonna accelerate it.
Yeah. So, like, until we get to, like, fully automated luxury gay space communism, basically.
Yeah.
The collective wet dream.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I guess I find the idea of, like, what the function is was quite functionalist anyway, but I kind of, like, have this idea that sex work is just a lot more banal than everyone realizes. And because it's something that, like, plays on people's insecurities and people's morality, like, issues and their idea of ethics, it's kind of like everyone then views the function through their bias towards the topic. But I think, like, bare bones of it, the function is so people can have sex and they can make money. Right. I'm not sure.
So usually, like, you just see it in a, like, very just, like, straightforward, like, transactional way, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's always people who are like, sex work is like therapy for people, blah, 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 blah. Well, they can see a therapist. It's not the prime function. You can kind of then project all kinds of things onto sex work. And I think that it would possibly change if, for example, we weren't under like austerity in the UK and stuff, or like we were whatever is happening in America that's tough for you guys economically. It's like, if that was taken out of it, I think then sex work could evolve into something different other than just base exchange money for sex.
Like what?
Like what, for example?
I don't know. I do know, kind of. I say I don't know because I'm second guessing myself, but I feel like it would be accepted more as an art, and there would be more of like an acceptance of it as a leisure activity.
Right. That's
Okay.
interesting.
So, for example, like, I mean, I can definitely see that, like, when it comes to like porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also stripping.
Yeah,
and also stripping for sure. Yeah. But then, like, I mean, I guess like full service sex work. If anything, I would see it more closely related to like, like getting a massage, like.
Okay, because
A
it's
service.
labor. You mean because
like
skin on skin, right?
Sorry?
Because like the skin on skin contact of a client, you know what I mean? Like sort of a masseuse, you're touching the body and like manipulating it.
Yeah, but okay, I see what you mean, like in terms of like it being more seen like as art, and especially I guess like when there's more to it than like literally just like watching someone giving someone else a blowjob,
So you can't be I mean, it is interesting because I kind of feel like when we're talking about sex work, there's always this kind of notion of a camera being this transformative thing in a room. So like when you're having sex for money, if there's a camera in the room, all of a sudden the conditions are different. It's quite interesting.
Wait, but do you think it makes it different, or like?
No.
Okay,
I think
so
it
like
does.
for you.
I don't know. I guess it does make it different, but in the terms of the bare basics of how you negotiate consent when you're having sex professionally,
Yeah,
it can kind of tie into the same thing. Obviously, when you're on a set, you can be on a set all day and stuff, and you have like more workplace things that you would have on a film. But I feel like the basic ethics of it all is penis and vagina for money.
Right, but also it's also the dynamic between who you're working with is different, right? So when you're having full service with a client, you're not a team, you're there to service him. When you're working with another star on set, you are on a team and you're working together for this product, right? So it's kind of different, the dynamic. It's more of like a partnership in this performance. That's kind of how I see it.
I feel that, but I don't know if you've done porn. So it can definitely be that sometimes, but sometimes like the dude is totally there because he just wants to like have sex with porn chicks.
Right.
Yeah. So
like you mean like the actors, like the male actors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but he's not paying you. I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah. I guess it's just also one of these things that I find difficult with this. I guess I get defensive in a way, is because radfems kind of like quite often target like this kind of transformative nature of like sex work and like how it happens and like strange delineations and like how there's all of these like fantasy different scenarios. It's strange, it's kind of like as a reflex, and almost because I think it's good for society, I try to go for that boring banality of it all and how it's all kind of similar if you're all kind of having sex for money, and how then I find that's good because it's a good base to kind of try and push for full service to have the same rights as people in porn, etc.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, so like, does anyone have any different opinions on like, what's the function that it serves right now? I
agree with with the artistic aspect of it, I can see how it can be like liberating in a creative way. My problem is that like when a transaction is involved, it's kind of like it kind of negates the social benefits of having like an art community around it, because it's way easier to pay a sex worker to engage in this like particular like sexual aspect that like, you know, I guess like turns you on, than to build a community around it in a like socially positive way. So my problem is with it being a commodity. But I guess like in a sense that could be unrealistic not to expect it to be a commodity at this point.
I mean, yeah, so like that was actually kind of the reason that I wanted to like, you know, think about like hypothetical futures, precisely because like I don't know, if you think about, well, you know how it's like it's always called like the oldest profession in the world or whatever, right? And it's not like it's always been like socially accepted at like all times everywhere in the world, like probably more like the opposite. But yet like, but it's still like, it's still not gone away in like literally thousands of years. So like, so I do think that, yeah, like even if you think that like, I don't know, making it a commodity like devalues it,
well, I guess
in some
like,
way.
Within I mean, art is a commodity too. I mean,
yeah, no, I was gonna say, yeah, like I mean,
yeah, I have a problem with that too. Yeah, art being a commodity. I'm saying like if you have like a, you know, like a kind of like a kink community, let's just say, and even if
community, people there's so much of a sex community, and people
obviously
these things anyway, and these things intersect. So if you're making, for example, I don't know, for me, I find that the kinky porn stuff and like mistresses and BDSM providers all like overlap in a Venn diagram with the actual kink scene, and they like actually developed out of the kink scene. So it's kind of like if you have a sexual community and there's something like that's quite hard to do, or like take some specialized skills, and always be professionals, because those are the people who can put the most effort into doing it. So even in a way, you could say that the people who organize sex parties are somehow professionals, obviously not sex workers, but you can't avoid a level of commodification of any community because things take money to make.
Yeah, and that's my only problem with it. Because, you know, it wouldn't be like, there's no issue with it being like, you know, for example, like community filming, you know, like sexual art pieces. But like when the intention is to sell it, it already has a different like effect. The change in like social relations when commodification is involved.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so actually, like about that, for example, like, I mean, I do think like you could say, like in the case of just like art, like painting or whatever you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's not always the same if you're like just like painting kind of like for yourself, so to speak, than if like you're doing it like to sell it, or like
it's an assumption about people's art. I understand what you're saying, and it's an assumption about like how people make things. And a lot of people, when they're deciding what kind of porn they're going to make, they're going to make porn that they actually enjoy making, and it's like something they're interested in. It's their kink, whatever. So, whilst of course, yes, you have to hit some points for the intended audience. There's always going to be a few things you should definitely put in to guarantee you're going to make the money, but.
Yeah.
So you can twist that to your own thing. So that's kind of being like, yeah, okay, so this genre of art that I make is popular and blah, 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 and I make it with the intent of selling it, but it's something I enjoy. I don't see where the issue is. Oh, unless we're
So the the streamlining process that you mentioned, that there's several points that you have to hit in order for it to be popular.
Yeah, but you could still put it out there and sell it, but maybe not make as much money. And I kind of think like that's just the nature of being a creative and making money off it. And I understand what you mean, totally. And I mean, I don't see why that's a bad thing, though. I think we all have to make some, we can't just go in there and do everything we want all of the time and expect a business to run that way. Because that.
Oh no, I'm not like I mean pragmatically, I obviously see the benefit. Like I'm just saying, like from a theoretical standpoint, which I guess it doesn't really translate into reality.
Yeah.
When
And
commodification is involved.
And obviously, one of the reasons why people are so sensitive about sex work is because sex is often seen in most societies as something that's sacred, right? Something that's supposed to be intimate. There's a lot of things attached to it: love, body image. What does woman mean? What does pleasure mean? Whatever. And in mainstream porn, easily could argue that women just aren't portrayed that positively, or I mean, of course, feminists could, or whatever. I mean, there's so many branches of feminism. I'm not even going to try to label which one, but a lot of women could argue, well, maybe I feel empowered by looking this way or doing this or performing all these kind of things. But, being just also, I'm a sex worker, but I'm also just a girl like living in this world. And, I've also come in first contact. I have lots of guy friends. I have lots of brothers who, and not necessarily having these conversations with my brothers, but with partners who their ideas of sex were totally warped because of mainstream porn. And that's not necessarily anyone's direct fault, but that is something you have to think about, or, that's something that's worth discussing that is interesting is, what do we, because, sex workers, their life is, their work. And then there's all these people consuming it, and there is an effect on what we consume and what we, from art to porn to all this to, all these kinds of different things, from music to film. And there's a cultural impact on that. And, so it's like, there are a lot of things you have to hit. A lot of these women are pressured themselves, and you do porn. I've never I don't do porn. I've done camming with my own small stuff and made my own small videos. I'm not on any like public sites. Maybe I am if someone secretly recorded me. It's very possible, but because I know that's happened to me before. But I've never done that. But I just know, as a person who's consumed porn and someone who lives in a world where everyone around me consumes porn, it is the mainstream effect of it. It is kind of intense to deal with, I think, but doesn't mean that it doesn't, porn doesn't have value, or that it shouldn't be done, or that they shouldn't have rights or
and
be
actually,
protected.
About that, like what you were saying about like how it is consumed, and like, because obviously, like you said, mainstream porn is not the same as like every kind of porn.
It's not. It's so different. They're so different.
Yeah.
And so like what I was gonna say is like, like if a lot of the problem, I think, with like, how you were saying that like maybe partners or like guy friends that you have like this like really warped idea about sex, and like sometimes you can trace that back to porn, right?
But men have a really warped idea about sex. And
what's
then
up?
Porn's a really good way. Porn then becomes a conduit for saying, this is the reason I have a warped view about sex. And but they struggle to communicate.
What I was going to say is that, like, I mean, I understand why, like, porn would become, like, I understand why porn could give you, like, a quote-unquote warped idea about sex. But, like, what I was going to say is that I don't think it's, like, the fault of, like, porn per se, but it's more like the way we treat like just like sex in general. Like,
yeah, the way we imagine porn is like half of the problem too.
Like, I guess, like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if we had like a more like a healthier treatment about like how we talk about sex in general, like, then I don't think porn would give people like warped ideas about sex.
I don't think you can have that like in a market environment, though. It's like, my question is like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like, I'm wondering whether like, considering the double game that porn has on like, consumers and how they portray sex afterwards, is it possible that like the sex positivity movement has internalized, marketability and like what's popular, like in its like ideology?
I think it's kind of strange to label everyone who doesn't view porn as bad as sex positive too. And like, it's a strange binary thinking of like sex positivity versus being sex critical. And it's kind of like, dude, you can be both of these things all at once. And it's, I don't think...
Wait, what do you mean? Like which two things at once?
You can be sex critical and sex positive. You can have...
Oh, okay.
Just a sense, just normal critiquing sense. And I feel like that we have, in general, a lot of issues towards sex and relationships. And it's quite...
And that's part of being human, too.
Yeah. And it's something that we haven't really managed to, like, battle properly. And everything's changing. The technology is getting wilder and bigger and more consuming. We can't escape it. And we're kind of, like, starting to face the reality that, like, okay, we can all access anything at any time, and that includes children. And we've kind of wrangled with this in the UK. I know this is just speaking from a UK perspective, and there was this whole push for age verification of pornography. So you'd have to get basically a pornography license to verify that you can watch porn.
You got a license for that porn, mate?
Yeah, right? Literally.
That's fucking awful.
Yeah. And
okay, wait, so like... just like
my point. What I'm trying to illustrate then is that a lot of people, I ended up talking to the media, and I did a lot of research, blah blah, and campaigning about this, and a lot of it boiled down to was that people couldn't look after their kids, and people were really, really scared about having a conversation about sex and about addressing the issues that surround sexual assault that have to do with men. Rather, it's like saying it's the pornification of society. It's just kind of like you're kind of like buying into the spooks. You don't want to have a direct conversation with men. It's like we've already proven with psychology that you're watching violent content doesn't make you violent. So I don't understand why there would be a different case for pornography. It feels like it's just the new folk devil, kind of like rap music back in the 90s.
I mean, when it comes to like, kids, that's just like immediate, like the lowest hanging fruit media talking point that they can find, so they can like shut it down as quickly as possible. But like one thing is that like I don't trust the market, but I trust the government even less. And when they try to fucking license everything, that's just like a really fucking bad path we're going on.
It was such a strange time.
It was really fucking strange, dude.
Okay, wait. So like. Picking up from what like was just said right now, like what would you think? And I think we're going to have to skip like the middle future and then like just jump straight into like fully automated luxury gay-based communism.
Yeah, the middle future is just death. Yeah, so let's just skip it.
Before going into luxury gay-based communism. So like, what would you say would be like, like a healthy balance in being like both sex critical and sex positive?
I don't understand the black and white thinking anyway of like having two camps.
Well, no. Like I get that part, and like I don't think it's like a good way. Like I don't think it's like a good approach to anything. Just like being like black and white. But like obviously there's like I mean I'm sure everyone has like a certain threshold after which you say like, okay, no, this is like too much sex positivity or like there's a certain threshold after which you say like, okay, no, this is like way too much like sex critical. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Isa? I'm sick of hearing my voice now.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I feel like obviously it is a holistic approach. There needs to be conversations happening within the family and within society, outside of porn, outside of like sexual spaces about sex. So when you get to those spaces, you're ready to handle them in a like healthy way, you know? And I do agree that parents that are too like afraid or don't want to step up and address a really, really big part of human life, they're failing their children. And I do think that having those discussions, even, you know, in an education system, in families, and having one, I mean, and all those conversations are going to vary, but they need to at least happen. And because, you know, they're first of all, sex work, there are benefits of sex work, and it is real work. And it's always going to exist, like, unless, like, even if it's outlawed, I mean, obviously it's going to continue to exist. And so I think and also just sex in general between two people, and it's not an exchange except for the act itself. And so I feel like when, you know, a young boy or a young girl or a young person comes up and sees a porn, they have a more healthy internalization of what it is. Because I mean, it's just, I think that some of the negative effects can be negated if there's just a conversation, at least. But also, I do think that there needs to be, I don't know. I think that once those conversations happen, the side effects of porn, I mean, there are like studies of how it affects brains just in general. And there's, you know, a huge, and it's very addictive too. Just like chemically, it's very addictive. And so it's like, why is that so addictive? And what about that is so appealing to so many people, specifically young men? I mean, if you go on like Reddit, there's like thousands and thousands of guys trying to kick the habit of just watching people have sex on a screen. What about that is so enticing? And that's what kind of interests me so much. Not because I think porn shouldn't exist, but it's like, what about that draws people so much? And so I feel like figuring out a way to negate those super addictive habits, which I guess makes porn so much money in the first place. But
I feel like that's a good point. And what I feel like, it's like a symptom of like kind of like how visible depression is now and how it interacts with the internet and stuff, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's like social media.
Yeah. So it's like a negative feedback loop for some people who are quite lonely, and because obviously there's just so much more free porn than there ever has been.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And also, like, if you think, and for example, another thing too is, you know, you think about, like the way, like, I mean, I remember, you know, growing up, and I don't know. I just remember watching porn. I grew up watching porn without really much conscious, mindful thought. And I never really had a talk from my parents or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I would just be like, oh, so this is how you do it. Like, I did learn what sex was like through porn. And then I would meet other guys who also learned what sex was like through porn. And I would be like, oh, wait, like this actually in real life doesn't feel good at all, because it literally all revolves the pleasure of the guy. And why? Because that makes money. Because that's what makes money usually.
For sure, there's that too. But also, a lot of porn is based around what's going to look good filmed, what camera angles work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so
true. You can't have porn comfortably.
So the problem, like, just like with like social media, I guess, is that there's like an industry revolving around it, and as long as there is an industry, there's always going to be predatory practices, and like it's going to be pushed to be as addictive as possible.
Well, I don't think I disagree that it's addictive. I just think that it's been more maladopted by people who are really depressed or they have other issues.
So it's not. I'd have to push back on that. I don't think it's just addictive to depressive people. I mean, I literally I talk about this with people all the time, and I'm, by the way, I'm happy to discuss any other, you know, not porn and other types of sex work anytime in this podcast, just because I promise you I am pro porn and I am pro sex work. But I will have to say that I would be stupid to say I like talking. It's an interesting topic to me. I talk about it with just real people all the time. You are actually in it. You've done a ton of research too, but I've studied more of the effects of it. And I meet guys who are normal, who aren't depressive, who aren't lonely, who have tons of friends, a huge social network, hobbies, school, a lot going for them, who are like, shit, it is so hard for me to stop watching porn. It's really like people in relationships. I mean, you guys are guys, feel free to speak up your own experience of consuming porn.
No, I totally get that, but my main issue is just that I don't think it's good to call it an addiction. I think it's compulsive behavior. It's like hiding all sexual compulsions, because like addiction, I think the model of addiction is like kind of different. I
think like calling out an addiction directly like calls out like the industry practice of it. You know, it's like how
make it addictive. This is the problem that I find with it, because we're not like sitting there. We are like, there's no like fucking boardroom and brazzers, and they're like, hey, how are we gonna make this scene really addictive? However, obviously I agree that people
no, of course not. But
it just translates to sale.
But it is.
Well, how?
Okay, wait,
dude,
guys, wait. Let's we don't have a lot of time left, so like I promise like it will like come back to like the industry and everything, but like let's just like move on to like sex work in the context of like fully automated luxury gay space communism.
We keep going back to that.
Yeah, no.
Oh
like,
man,
okay, so here's
that's the problem.
Think...
We can't imagine the future, man. All we talk about is the middle future. But I thought we agreed on that. It's death.
It's what?
Death.
So man. Like, but no. So here's what I think it's interesting about like talking about porn porn or just like sex work in general in the context of like fully automated blah blah blah. Because like so. Like the basic idea of like, you know, fully automated luxury gay space communism is like a post scarcity society, right? Like basically Star Trek, right? Where like, I mean, there's no material scarcity. There's like complete like I guess gender equality in the measure that like that's possible, you know. Etc. So, you know, like, let's say if you, like, if sex work was only a thing that people did, like, as, like, you know, like, as a job to, like, put food on the table, right? Then if we actually lived, like, in a post-scarcity society where, like, you wouldn't have to work, then there probably wouldn't, like, be sex work, right? Because there wouldn't be work.
There would be sex work. It's just you wouldn't call it sex work. It would just be like individual artists of like representing a like sex community, right?
Well, no, I mean, part of that, yeah, I agree. But like on the other hand, like
that's my tagline.
I still do think like there would be like some form of like transactional sex.
Yeah, of course there would be.
Right? Because like
sex work existed in the Soviet Union.
Yeah. No, and like, but so my point, I mean, you can think of like, instead of like having like, you know, pimps or just like independent like escorts, you could have like, I don't know, like co-op brothels, right?
Yeah.
That are like owned and managed by like the sex workers themselves, right?
Why don't we have that today?
Yeah, we want it now. This isn't even like the future. This is
let's do this now. Come on.
Okay, yeah, I mean, but like, so my point is like, I think that would be a thing because I don't think there's like
future that give us our rights finally.
Like, my point is like, even in a post-scarcity society, I don't think there would be such a thing as like a like sex post-scarcity. Like, I think in a way, kind of like sex will always be a scarce resource, so to speak.
Yeah, for real. No, it's not like all of a sudden because you've got communism, you'll have a state girlfriend.
Exactly.
You have a state sex bot though.
For God's sake.
Hey, okay. Actually, I mean that's how far advanced is AI? because if it's really
like super
well
advanced, dude.
if it's super advanced, then like maybe you do have a state girlfriend.
Yeah, when Nestor talks about post-scarcity, he means real post-scarcity, if you know what I'm saying.
So like basically like
state-mandated
Westworld
robot
type
girlfriend?
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay, but like let's ignore for the moment like state-mandated robot girlfriends. like
You can't, dude.
You can't. It's the future. It's coming.
It's the future, dude.
Well, okay, but like okay, so then in that case, like if there's like state-mandated robot girlfriends, then like yeah, probably sex work won't be a thing. Like
really?
provided
Everyone wants to fuck robots in the future?
Okay, have you seen Westworld?
I just haven't, no.
Okay, well watch the pilot and get back to me.
Well,
it's like human sex is gonna revolve around like sex robots because like people are actually gonna change their like reproductive organs to have like more pleasurable experiences with machines. So it's gonna be completely redefined. That's real post-scarcity, man.
Well, and like the other like I said in the previous podcast, like I think one thing that will happen is that like people will get surgery to be like anime looking.
Well, that's already happening.
It's happening.
God,
Here is now.
God help us. Fucking God help us.
Yeah.
You just gotta go on Instagram.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, but wait, then so if state-mandated robot girlfriends become like a real thing in the context of like fully automated luxury gay-based communism, then like do you think like sex work would just or like if you want to call it work or call it whatever, but like do you think it would just like be like performance? You think there would be like no like transactional sex?
I think it would be just performance, right?
What if kink is what if your kink is pay? What if you're fin dog?
Well, that's interesting though, because like if we lived in a post-scarcity society, would like the findom kink exist? I don't know.
The real questions messed up.
I think that's a real question though, because like I mean, part of the like kink, like I mean, I don't know anyone who has that kink, but like I'm assuming part of it is just like, you know, like I have this like so much money, but like it doesn't fulfill me.
Guys,
So
did Laura just leave?
Oh yeah, she did.
Dang.
Oh wait.
I'm sure she didn't mean to.
Yeah, too much talk about sex bots.
Oh wait, I think. Oh, her laptop battery just died. Apparently.
Wow. Well, what? Yeah. Fuck's sake! This is a great podcast, dude.
No, honestly, I think it's been like pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Like, a lot of technical difficulties.
A lot of yeah.
Are we gonna pause or are we gonna talk till she gets back?
I guess like let's talk till she gets back.
Oh my god, there's gonna be so much editing for me now.
But I think it will still exist in the way that there will still be people who want real people, you know, because I do think that connection is a big part of what it is, whether people realize that or not, is you know, there's an emotional aspect to it.
Yeah, no, like I do think that like state-mandated robot girlfriends will never like completely replace like.
I think it will help. I think honestly that sex robots is the shit because it will help so many. I think people, at least some. It's like, okay, here's the thing. If the void, I don't want to call it a void, but I don't know what else to call it. If the void in your heart can be filled by a sex robot versus a real human, then it should be filled by a robot. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's dope. But I feel like there's also going to be people who, you know, want the realness of a person and will still feel lonely with a robot, even if it looks as like a real Westworld person, you know?
Yeah. Really?
Oh
Isn't
yeah.
that just gonna take us to like a post-public society where just like staying with your sex bot is just easier than going out in public?
I mean, I think that will definitely happen for people, but I think that will just be helpful. Like, I think that will, like, I don't know. I just feel like there are a lot of, okay, so for example, like in escorting, you meet, okay, I've had clients who come over and they just want to talk. They come over, they pay the hour, and they want to talk. And they just want a young girl that they think is cute to listen to them and have a conversation and shoot the shit for an hour. And so, you know, that is not that rare. And or there'll be a client who will talk for literally 45 minutes and I'll have to be like, oh hey, you know, you got 15 minutes left. I'm gonna be like, okay, let's do it really quick. But like what he's looking for is more than just physical pleasure. He's looking for some kind of emotional pleasure too. And
that's very respectable. Like help a loser out. I think we're missing this in society. We need to help out losers, man.
That's the thing. And so and that's why, you know, that's something I've learned in this new kind of thing of sex work that I do, is that you don't get in porn, is that there's a connection that you make, and you know, you get regulars, you get clients who come back and who are loyal to you, and that's when you see sex work become really human, because it is a performance still, and it's still work, but it also can foster, you know, real feelings of fulfillment between the client and between the provider. So that's kind of why I liked escorting and why I like escorting.
Very wholesome.
Okay, yeah. Oh, wait, you're back?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one final like fun question. Because like we're almost out of time.
Mm-hmm.
But for like both of you, like, what do you think is a fuckboy, and what's your take on fuckboys?
Take it away, Misha.
Hello?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
You go.
No, you go first. You go first, because I just got done talking for like 10 minutes.
Okay. I think that a fuckboy is... I think it has to be someone who's generally like in the arts and stuff, and like thinks very highly of themselves. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the arts, but you find a lot of them in the arts. They think very highly of themselves, and they overestimate like their talents. They overestimate their likability. They have poor relationship skills, and they're kind of like what you would call like, I think they're a male thought, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on them, is that they're okay if you just want to fuck them. That's fine.
All right, fair enough. Yeah.
I definitely agree that a fuckboy is a guy with poor social skills. I would say it's a guy with really low self-esteem that's trying to project a high self-esteem.
Yeah,
and who, even though has a very low self-esteem, carries a huge attitude of entitlement. And
does it traverse into autism to some extent?
No, more personality disorder to me, I think.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So they're socially stunted.
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
Like, for example, the really good one that I think we all know of is that really famous YouTuber, blonde Logan Paul.
Oh,
he's socially stunted, yeah.
Like, he you can tell he actually doesn't really have a personality. I mean, I haven't really watched his shit, so I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I know him that well, but from the things I've seen about him, very socially underdeveloped and emotionally underdeveloped. So yeah, I would say that's like the epitome of a fuckboy. Someone who's not like considerate or courteous to other people. That's a fuckboy.
So
you know,
they're usually like financially well off.
No.
I don't think you have to be. I mean, I think it's easy to find people of all sorts of, you know, in all sorts of financial situations that are fuckboys.
Because to me, it's like, you know, fuckboys either usually like compensate for like a material lack, or they haven't developed emotionally because they're rich.
It's just now, I think it's anyone who feels like they're lacking something and has a complex of relationships, basically.
Totally. Yeah, so that's a fuckboy.
Lack isn't real, man. Lack is an illusion, bro.
Oh wait, are we talking
Unreal.
about like that kind of lack, like Lacan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Are we?
Oh.
I was talking about Deleuze.
Oh. All right. Well, I think. Wow, we've done almost like an hour now. So
It's been great.
Great.
yeah.
With all the interruptions, we still covered some good topics. Thanks, Nestor, for helping us out with the questions.
Thanks. It was
problem.
nice talking to y'all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Isa. Thanks, Misha. And good talk.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
See
Have
you
a good
guys.
one. Bye.
Sexy worse dying for. Sexy worse dying for.